Mr. Li, now we understand there are sectors from the U.S. industries that disagree with the latest policy and have been working over the past months, if not a year, with the Biden administration to convey their ideas. So this, if one could say, symbolic policy to increase tariffs, some even to 100%, what does that mean to these industries in their future cooperation potential with China? Will China and U.S., when it comes to these new energy sector and IT sector, be decoupled, at least rhetorically and policy-wise, by politicians alone?
You bring up a very important point, and maybe to tone down the rhetoric, $18 billion, of which $13 billion on lithium batteries, seems to me not a war or even an escalation of a pre-existing war. It really is a way of readjusting the kind of subsidies that we need to put in place here in the United States. What is important for China and U.S. relations is that these tensions, and as Professor Tu rightly pointed out, the retaliation, the tit for tat under the Trump administration led to nothing. It didn't lead to benefits to either country. But what would have led to benefit was an expansion of the trade talks that would have entered into phase 2 and phase 3 of the trade talks that were started under President Trump. Unfortunately, President Biden didn't continue those in good faith as we had hoped. And we now, 4 years later, don't have a trade agreement between the United States and China. So in a way, there were initial efforts made to patch WTO, patch the world trade framework in a way that recognizes the reality of the United States and China, the largest trading partners in the world, and we should have an agreement between the two of us that establishes a framework that can be used for everybody else. Now we have sort of unilateral protectionism all around the world, including Europe, including South America, all over the world, because of the failure to have a trade framework. But one of the things that, as your question asks, is that many industries in the United States have been trying behind the scenes to avoid this tariff and non-tariff barrier approach, and to try to have talks that will lead to a trade framework of the sort that was started under President Trump. And right now,
Mr. Li, what do you make of the nature and the impact so far?
Professor, the official U.S. line is that the tariffs are put in place as a protective measure to protect the investments that we've been making into onshoring a lot of the industries that China is so efficient in, and trying to develop our own domestic industries. And right now, it's a way of allowing these industries to develop in the United States without the strong competition that would come from Chinese imports. So in a way, it's what they call an infant industry argument. We have very infant industries that are barely capable of being able to produce a lot of these equipment, and China is in some ways is being asked to stay out until we are able to be more competitive.
What is
and right now, the lithium industry, we recognize that even if we find lithium here in the United States, we still have to process it in China. And nobody in the United States wants to have a lithium processing plant built in the United States. So that reality has to come home, and we need to have clear set of rules by which intellectual property and trade necessities that match the comparative advantage of U.S. and China to come forth. And so far, discussions have not gone that way. Instead, they've gone the political battle, because it's an election year in the United States, into a tough talk against China. And Trump and Biden are both trying to out-tough each other.
Professor, so my final question, very briefly from both of you, from now leading up to the election, can we expect any kind of sound discussion regarding the trade policies, for example, on some of the sectors being mentioned by the latest U.S. policies, including the EVs, 100% tariffs? Dr. Li.
Well, as an old Washington hand, I think you will realize that the rhetoric only increases during a political election year. So as I said, we should sit back and just watch the political fights go on. And then when the real election's over, that's when the real policymaking takes place. And I think both President Trump and President Biden have the interest in creating a new trade framework between the United States and China that works for the benefit of both countries.
And Professor Tu, very briefly also.
Yeah, it's a really difficult in an election year. to keep trade dialogues, especially after this new tariff increase. So yeah, I think the best opportunity or best possibility is to trying to stabilize the current situation.
Tu Xinquan, William Li, gentlemen, thank you so much for both of you for joining us.